We are back again like Hackenen. It is indeed the 17th of the 1st, 2025, and your boy Cameron CC is here to talk with you about all things F1 news, updates, for there are very many F1 centric threads at which we need to pull, trimmed up, ready to go, lights out, although the voice is still struggling a little bit. On the docket today, we've got to talk about Checo Perez because details are being revealed in real time. We have a figure, how much they needed to pay to settle his contract. So too, what would have happened had he not settled, because for the avoidance of doubt, the balls that are red, they do not play. And they definitely don't play nice. So too, we'll talk about Maximilian Verstappen, and so too, we'll talk about Scuderia Ferrari. Those are the three topics on the docket today, as at the 17th of the 1st, 2025. The time is 7 minutes past 8. Let's talk about Toto, the boy who cried wolf, first, because he was talking about Lewis Hamilton. You'll remember many moons ago, or at least the die-hard grizzled F1 vets amongst you will. You recall that many moons ago, it was mooted that Rossi and Lewis Hamilton were going to do one of these John Surtees settings, that each was going to do the other's discipline. That Rossi, Valentino Rossi, number 46, fancied a cheeky stint in a Scuderia Ferrari car, and Lewis Hamilton was talking about MotoGP. It was mooted. I promise you, I wouldn't make this up. Valentino Rossi at the time jumped in Michael Schumacher's Ferrari, if I recall correctly, and was mooted, rumoured to have been quick, but not quite quick enough. And then a very similar thing happened with Sir Lewis Hamilton under the tutelage of Toto, the boy who cried wolf. Now here's why this is techie. Because sports athletes at this level generally in their contract aren't allowed to do high risk sports danger, because these teams can't afford for their assets with whom they are contracted over the long term to get injured, for they're losing money in real time. Toto, the boy who cried wolf, says this though of Lewis Hamilton's interest in motorsports, motorbikes more precisely. Here's what he said. Toto, when Lewis Hamilton tested the Yamaha YZF R1 Superbike, said that secretly they didn't tell me. I couldn't get hold of him for 2 days, and finally my engineer picks up and he says it's all good. He fell, but he was only 4 seconds off MotoGP pros. Oh, the humanity. And they say Lewis Hamilton, some say that he's multi-talented, 4 seconds off MotoGP pros. Toto, the boy who cried wolf, expanded on this and said that there is something in Lewis Hamilton, his internal gyroscope, that lends itself to success across discipline. Potentially Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson Hamilton, if he chose to become a MotoGP rider, extending his interest not just to ownership but to riding these bikes at the ripe old age of 40 years old, then by dint of his times 4 seconds off MotoGP riders, with learning and improvement, expediting even for his learning curve, that he could do something on a MotoGP bike. Oh, the humanity. Excuse me, ever so hoarse. You would never know that your boy had a flu or a cold and has been suffering, no, dying from it all week. But I digress. Let's talk about Checo Perez, Chiba. What's going on? The clip of Toto said that Lewis was testing. Yeah, exactly this, Chiba. We've seen the same source. Let's talk about Checo Perez, because I was reading something that was awfully interesting to me. As we time diatribe, no post-mortem, the situation that was Checo Perez, missed the underperformance in 2024. As near as makes no difference, every single rose, oh, stop talking about Checo Perez, Cameron, say all of the Checo Perez fundamentalists around the world. You know that good and goddamn well that dude Checo Perez didn't have the same car as Max Verstappen. You know this, that they sabotage. How do you know? Well, they were put forth as Exhibit A the fact that in 2022, Checo Perez was near as makes no difference, lapping 10th for 10th with one Max Verstappen. But what happened since then? We know that Max Verstappen has the ability to drive the quickest version of that RB car, the 2022 iteration of it, the quickest of those two Red Bull drivers, and that's what most F1 aficionados argue happened. That Adrian Newey and co lent into designing the quickest car, and the quickest car in the quickest driver's hands, of course, is going to be the symbiosis, no, the epitome of quickness. That's what happened, and that, in so doing, coincidentally lent away from Checo Perez's driving style. He's a rear limited Donny, is he not? Throttle. Do you know what I mean? Subtlety in applying the throttle on the combined exit of these turns. But lest we forget, last year wasn't his finest. Once upon a time, the Mexican Minister of Defense was a goatee one. Brilliant, coming from the back as if it was nothing. He looked and felt like he could be one of the good ones, a potential future champion, they said at the time. But like many F1 drivers, sadly for Checo Perez and many Mexican F1 fans all around the world, he could not and would not ever deliver on that. In stark contrast, lest we forget, to Antonio Perez Garibay, Checo Perez's father's oft proclamations that if Checo Perez can get the Red Bull car underneath him in the way that he likes it, that he will still be a champion one day. That was his statements last year. What was he talking about, chat? What are we doing here? How could one's ability be so brilliant to completely ignore all of the evidence that your ears and eyes are presenting to? That, of course, is that Checo Perez's prime has long gone and he would never ever recapture it. This delusion, that's what we call that, right? Antonio Perez Garibay, Checo Perez's dad, became an abbot of unreason by necessity, though. And in that sense, you've got to extend some empathy. Jacob, you're a legend. Or Jacob, sorry if I've mispronounced. MV33 and Honda and Helmut Marko. Looking forward to 2026. Jacob, we will come to that, I promise you. But Checo Perez, here's the news that I was reading earlier. And again, take this for whatever you will, because all F1 publications are created equal E. But some are created more equal than others. I feel like I was reading this on Planet F1, and they said this, or our mates over at f1oversteer.com, and they said this about the Checo Perez circumstance. 11 million was how much he got paid to shut his mouth and take two seats. Who am I talking about? Checo Perez. Because of his underperformance, it was no longer tenable to keep him at the Bulls that are red as a driver alongside Max Verstappen. It had been no longer tenable as far back as summer break. Even, what are we doing here? What are they talking about? This is nonsense. 11 million. I would argue from the Bulls that are red's perspective, though, that might turn out to be a steal. There is opportunity cost to be factored in. Too kind, by the way, Jacob. Thank you so much for the donation. There is opportunity cost now that needs to be factored into this equation. What are you talking about, Cameron? Well, by not promoting a Liam Lawson or an Isaac Hadjar or an Arvid Lindblant, you risk losing them to the enemy in the boys and girls at Brackley and Brixworth as an example, or McLaren, or anybody else, or a Scuderia Ferrari. True or false? This is what we're dealing with. And we're seeing that these F2 drivers, these young hungry lions, are more capable now than ever to jump into a F1 car and expedite for their learning curve to get to the payoff period as quick as is possible. And what does that mean? That means that they did the right thing. £11 million is a steal, therefore. What was the alternative, however? Because you know that Red Bull don't play fair, that they go up to the line, peer over it, and then will step over it, bend or break the rules as and when necessary. And in this situation, if Checo Perez, as he was trying to do, negotiate, if he decided that he wanted to see out his 2-year contract, that he got buyed into the fact that he was the only Red Bull driver to come out and support his team principal, Christian Horner, unequivocally. If indeed he wanted to play a hard ball and see out his contract, they were going to make a show pony of him, a glorified reserve driver. Oh yes. This would have been Mick Schumacher settings. They would have put him to the back and he would have been doing the show runs on his contract. And that would have been humiliating. No, not a good look for all related parties concerned. There we go. That's what the news is on Checo Perez, and it's techie. Yeah? It is techie. I feel a little bit. I do feel bad for him as Father Perez still talking about Checo Perez coming back to F1, and that might happen one day, but it's different now, isn't it? I think we can call time on Checo Perez's career, at least in a car capable of winning races and therefore championship. The competitive aspect of Checo Perez's career se acabó, done, gonzo, no te rindas, cabrón. ¿Entiendes? That is it, ladies and gentlemen. Una says, I can't fathom how anybody could think. Oh, Esioka, you're a legend. Let me read out Una's first. I can't fathom how anybody could think that any team would sabotage their own driver. Una, it's a brilliant point. We'll get to it. I've been reading a lot about this stuff of late. Esioka, you're a legend. Can my predictions for 2025 before 1st of May, you hit 50k? Let's go. Oh, the humanity. Predictions F1. Minosabi Suriname. For I don't know. Minosabi is Suriname for I don't know. It's very similar to the Spanish, right? Yo no lo sé. Why is my Spanish tongue evading me? No lo sé. No hablo español y todo. Con acento cubano y todo. You're a legend, that's Yoko. Go on, let's address this Una thing, and listen, keep it going in the chat and I'll dip in and out. I apologise for those comments, particularly from the elated peddlers that I'm missing, but you know, sometimes you got to riff and freestyle. Go on, and Una makes a really good point, and we'll talk to it. I can't fathom how anybody would think that a team would sabotage their job. So okay, so let's contextualise this. This is F1, lest we forget. A piranha's tank of a sporting endeavour where they will kill their grandma if it means access to even a millisecond of lap time. Keep that front and centre of your mind, and that will gauge how we get through this conversation, right? That's what we're dealing with. So if you're talking about mens rea, motivation to do something that's skullduggerous, then an F1 team absolutely would pull the trigger on that. And you're far too kind, Esjoka. I appreciate that donation. That's you're a bit naughty. I appreciate it. So here's what I'm going to say about F1 teams. They make a living by bending the rules. The Ross Brawn adage still runs true, that you read the rules once to see what they say and another time to see how you can take advantage of what they do not say. This is F1, is now and has always been, will always be. They bend and break, they race hard and sometimes not fair. So if past is prologue, like F1 teams in the past have done wickedness. Sabotage is like the least of what F1 teams have done in the past, like teams and drivers. Schumacher back in the days, like rubbing up against Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello and the wall, and they were meant to be friends. There's no one on an F1 team at that time who can claim to have done more to help Michael Schumacher win his 7 championships than Rubens Barrichello. And when it came down to it, Michael Schumacher was ready, more than prepared, to put that fella in the war, and that would have been an horrendous incident. So that's why I say that. That's why I think that's part of the reason why people say that, Una, because they've seen F1 drivers and or teams exercise the craziest levels of skullduggery with a view not necessarily to win races, but just to make up a few places. Crashgate, Liegate, Spygate. There's just been too many. Fabio Briatore is ready to sack Jack Doohan if he doesn't see something from him over the first 5 races. So that's the context within which we have this conversation, Una. And then I think the rest you can attribute to confirmation bias. If Maximilian Verstappen is my driver, as an example, or let's say Lewis, better example. If Lewis Hamilton is my driver and I think he's the greatest driver that's ever lived, and then all of a sudden in 2-4, George Russell, who I don't rate, hypothetical argument, because I think George is definitely a very good driver and will one day be a champion. If all of a sudden Lewis Hamilton is getting beat by the young pretender, upstart King George Russell, then somehow one of 2 things needs to happen, right? Either I need to reevaluate the lens through which I absorb the reality that is my unique brand of Formula One. Either I need to have that conversation with myself, or I can attribute Lewis's drop off in performance, him getting beat by George, to sabotage or something else. Do you know what I mean? Some other external conspiracy. Put my tinfoil hat on, whatever. Why, Una, do people do this? The latter as opposed to the former? Because it's easier, Una. Rather than reevaluate your whole, the way in which you ingest your Formula One, analyse the lens through which you recognise Sir Lewis Hamilton's talents in real time. Rather than do that, which is difficult, that's a difficult conversation to have. Instead of doing that, it's so much easier to say Mercedes did it. Lewis can't be losing it. There's no way that Lewis is like a tenth slower than he was like 5-10 years ago. No way. No way. Age can't. Even though Father Time is undefeated, undisputed, pound for pound, never lost a round, there's no way that Sir Lewis, Carl, Davidson, Hamilton can be losing a step. Absolutely no way. It's easier to dismiss that out of hand and blame something else, even if that's something else that makes less sense on paper to a rational mind. That's why people do it. It's a confirmation bias of sorts. Here's what I think, and I will form an argument that justifies this, that meets and matches it, that's set fair per se. That in my humble opinion is why Coyote in the house. Yo no sé hacer, yo no sé. It's techie. Go on, let me have a look. Chiba, Checo's always performed at a solid midfield level. Small spikes, but overall mid. Chiba, you know what always perturbed me about Checo Perez? The way people didn't see that the first 5 or 6 races, he always looked like a world beater, a potential world drivers champion. But then after that, when we got back to Europe, it was like he couldn't drive the car again. And people failed to connect the dots that, yeah, Checo Perez is a street king. Around the corner like Rascasse, low speed, medium duration turns. Yeah, Checo Perez he can live with Max, but anything outside of that, he's going to struggle. And that those corners are the most frequently occurring types of corners, as at the calendar in 2024 now. Your bloody, your Eau Rouges and your Radiant, your Maggots and Beckett's, and that it is quick turns, Spa, Silverstone, Suzuka, 130, they're all speedy turns, and Max is always going to handle an F1 car better and quicker for those type of S turns, the high speed, low duration turns. Max is always going to nail Checo Perez around there. So I just don't understand why people's goes back to your point, Una. I don't understand why people's memories were so short. Less than 12 months every single year. First 5 races, Checo's going to win the championship. And then the remaining 19, he would do nothing. And then the next year again, he'd do well the first 5, and we'd be like, oh my, this is Checo's year. And then Red Bull would give him another contract, only for the remaining 24 races, or 19 races even. You just wouldn't hear from him or see from him, because he just didn't have, his style doesn't speak to the most frequently occurring automotive pugilistic problem as far as what these set of circuits on this calendar offer these drivers. It just he's not team orders potentially, you know. I don't know. I think people will spin a yarn and reverse engineer any narrative to fit the argument that they brought to the table in the first instance. That therein is a form of confirmation bias, is it not? And I've been reading a lot about this. A lot. Sagan's standard dictates that if you're going to make these accusations that are so left field, that extraordinary claims will by definition require extraordinary evidence to substantiate them. So when Checo Perez fans are saying, well, he's got a different car, 2022 by itself isn't sufficient enough. That's such an extraordinary claim. Plus, this is a difference in extents and not kinds now, right? Why would they sabotage Checo Perez to that extent, to where they're cutting off their nose to spite their face, to where they ultimately lose the Constructors' Championship? That just doesn't make sense. Not to that extent in my own mind. But if you're a Checo Perez fan, then it's easier. It's easier rather than have that conversation, that very honest, earnest one, and unpick at some objective truth, value, and reality, it's easier to just say, well, it's Red Bull. Red Bull was sabotaging him. They didn't give him the car, as is father of Checo Perez, Antonio Perez Garibay. But I digress, Jackie Chan. What the fudge did everybody take an extra fistful of mushrooms that I have, mate? I don't know what you're talking about, Chiba. It's chaos. I think you're relating to the fact that people have different opinions. Why does the community... Let's talk this thing through properly, actually. Why does the community need to do this as well? There's so many code words for you disagree or I disagree with you. Oh, it's bias. What have you been smoking today? And I know you guys are being banterful, but why even try? I disagree with you has always served me well. Like, why does it need to be you're absolutely insane? Your translation, this is what the F1 community does, and I think we need to put this up on FAQ somewhere. Translation for respectfully, ma'am or sir, I disagree with you. This is how the F1 community translates it en masse. You're not a Lewis Hamilton fan. What are you talking about? You no way you could be a Lewis Hamilton fan. You always criticize. Well, okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah, cool. Why do you always say these things about Charles Leclerc? Charles Leclerc's the best driver that's ever lived. He never makes a mistake. And if he does make a mistake, it's always Carlos Sainz's fault because his PR team is so wrong and strong all the time, and they superimpose themselves onto Charles Leclerc's will, and he's only a young lad, and he's so... Translation, I disagree with your opinion on Charles Leclerc. Like, whatever happened to those words? But apparently, so toxic and extreme is social media, particularly in the space of F1 and more broadly as far as current affairs and the politics that's going on in the world. Then it's impossible. It's impossible, Kaori. Long time and I see you, my girl. Like, what's going on, Kaori? You're having a rest. To be fair, everyone's having a cheeky rest from F1. We'll get onto this Max Verstappen stuff shortly because it's techie. This I was just throwing a thought into the hat. I'm 100% Max. You know, it's a good thought process, and I think this is. You know what? Let me say this as I broach the Ferrari topic. As we go into 2.5, it is going to get techier and techier than techie things. I'm telling you, it's going to be so polemic and polarizing. The Lewis Hamilton experience at Ferrari as a starter for 10 is going to be a chaos. God forbid, pray for Scuderia Ferrari that Lewis Hamilton never makes a mistake in 24 races, because the second that he does, the talk una of sabotage is going to blow everybody's mind. Like, if you just stay away from your Twitter sphere, don't do it to yourself, because it's just going to be too chaotic. The press and media attention on Ferrari is already chaos. You will have seen on F1 Reddit, speaking of Ferrari, that they've put out, the social media team at Ferrari have put out a couple of different pictures, haven't they? So they've put there's one with two dog bowls, obviously insinuating that Lewis and Charles' dogs are going to be going on play dates or whatever, and that's going to be chaos in and of itself. Roscoe and whatever Charles Leclerc's dog's called, that alone is going to be cause for chaos. Secondly, they took another couple of images, and there's cryptic fans have gone away and pieced together and done the epiphany. Oh, I see this, I can see that, and they've pieced together like the 44 and the 16, which of course are the numbers of Lewis and Charles respectively. This, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be chaos. I'm telling you, both very good looking drivers, both two of the most marketable drivers on the grid at the same team in the most marketable car, the red car that has the yellow badge atop, that has the black prancing horse atop, the only team in F1 history to have competed in every single season going back to 1950. This, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be chaos. Unprecedented scenes. Lewis Hamilton, the mainstream superstar that he is, music interest, fashion interest outside of Formula One. I'm telling you, people aren't ready for what we're about to see. Lest we forget, January 20th, I think, is the first date when Lewis jumps in the car, and shortly thereafter he'll be testing the SF, not the 2.3, the F175, I think. So the 2020 iteration of Ferrari. It will be chaos. Don't believe me? Well, here's your Exhibit A. Angela Cullen, again, legend of Formula One, and had a brilliant relationship with Lewis, was the coach, come physio, come confidant, come mentor, like whatever you want to say, right? Accompanied Lewis wherever and wherever, held his phone and helmet and anything else he needed holding. Like, was a proper, I don't know what the word is, consigliere maybe? Is that the right word for Angela? Confidant, like, mate, she was many things to Lewis Hamilton, but Lewis recently said, or not long ago said, that he knows no other woman as committed as Angela Cullen. And then you get the bloody pictures on Instagram. Were they skiing at the same time? Well, Lewis Hamilton fans are speculating they've gone away and done the due diligence that me nor you have time to go and do. And they spotted a couple different things. Correlation, of course, does not imply causation. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be on the grid in 2025 necessarily. But who knows? Go on, let me give you this. Number 44 was in the background when you zoom in on Angela's Instagram picture. What does that mean? Could mean nothing. It could mean something. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe it was apophenia. You'll recall that on Aston Martin's Instagram over the summer break, they put the number 33. Is the number 33 insinuating that they're on the lookout for a driver in Maximilian Verstappen, whose number before he became champion had always been 33? Or were they alluding to the fact that Fernando El Plan Alonso, man from Oviedo, Asturias, that his next victory, if indeed that is something that happens, will be his 33rd? Who knows? Causation, apophenia, who knows? It's techie. So I just think it's gonna get chaotic, and people will be connecting dots that shouldn't be connected, because it's fun and it's the off season and new cycles troughing, and there are things that they want to talk about. Confirmation bias of sorts, if indeed you hope that Angela and Lewis will reunite. It would be good for F1. Another story, another thread, an F1 centric thread at which we can pull in 2025, as if we need any more. Matthew Brown, you're an absolute legend, sir. Thank you. I love the idea. Max in a new team, new atmosphere in Formula One. But would you go in a team that has the owner's son in the other seat? That's potential sabotage if ever I see it. Matthew, we're going to come to it, I promise you, mate. There's lots to do. That's half an hour by itself, I'm telling you. Go on then. There's something else I wanted to talk about. We've done Ferrari, Scuderia Ferrari, we've done Lewis Hamilton and the PR furore that's going to accompany Angela. Oh yeah, and by the way, there's a really good video on Kim Illman's YouTube channel. He talks about it. He's a decent. He's a photographer come journo, isn't he? I know he never claimed journalism, but people go to him to get the latest and greatest. And in all things F1 and F1 news. He said in his latest video about the potential reunion between Angela Cullen and Sir Lewis that he hasn't had anything confirmed. He reached out to the Kiwi that is Angela, and so too did he reach out to who's she currently managing, Marcus Ericsson in IndyCar, and neither one of them returned anything. Angela, by the way, per Kim Illman in this video, go and check it out, said that Instagram post has since been deleted because, of course, Lewis Hamilton extremists and or serious fans or rational-minded fans all over the world are hoping and praying and asking questions and pulling at Angela Cullen, Lewis Hamilton reunion threads. And it would be a bit much, especially if she couldn't announce it, so she deleted that Instagram post. Maybe that's more smoke. And where there is smoke in F1, sometimes there is fire. Go on and let's talk about Max, because I've made you guys wait long enough. And my voice is fading out. Maybe too many F1 topics on the docket today, when we are in sickness as well as in health. Go on then. Aston Martin, £1 billion, not dollars, pounds for Max Verstappen. Is that real? You guys tell me in the chat what you think, because I don't know what to make out of it. In some ways it aligns perfectly, but in other ways there are holes, multitudinous holes that one can pick in this narrative. Let's deal with the former first. Why does it make sense? It makes sense in the eventuality that Red Bull don't build themselves a car over the next couple of years. Maybe convergence continues. Imagine we're having this conversation this time next year and Lando Norris is the champion. Because lest we forget, Lando Norris is favourite to win the World Drivers this year. And that's got to mean something. Max Verstappen will be acutely aware of that more than most because, of course, he will know the travails of the car last year, the understeer settings, the fact that he was brake bias -5 and the car still wouldn't turn. Where Max gains the most time on the other 19 drivers is, of course, these slow corners. Low minimum speed, medium duration turns. Rascasse, you saw it, sector 3. Fernando Alonso gains 3/10 in one turn alone. That's where Max Verstappen will be gaining the time. And if he's suffering from understeer, he will therefore be frustrated. In Max's mind, per Hughes' book, Unstoppable, Max sees himself as the best driver. And if he's not winning every single race, then there's something wrong, something outside of his control that is sabotaging him in real time. That's what Max will be thinking. And what's the best way to effect change, to rectify that? To leave. I just don't think, I know he toes the party line, does Max. I don't know him personally, but I feel like I've watched and read enough about him now to have an insight into his mind. Every single time we talk about 2017-18 when he first came into F1, his tenure, one must see through the eyes of the failed career of father of Max, one Jos Verstappen. He saw himself in Benetton and his potential, his wings got clipped quick. Can't put him alongside Michael Schumacher. Like, how's that going to work out for anyone in F1 history? Not very well. And Jos was keen, though desperate for that not to happen to his son, Max. Ergo, safety rails around his whole career at every single juncture, not least in that contract. Performance clauses going both bloody ways. Red Bull would have had them, but so too would Max have had them. And rumour on the F1 curb, word on the F1 curbies, and that they're still in there. That if indeed Max starts falling, tailing off down into the driver's standings, that he can leave in real time, null and void the contract. And that's where these rumours sprout from. Of course, they had conversations, Team Verstappen with Mercedes over the summer break. Toto, the boy who cried wolf, confirmed that. So too at Miami. Over the course of that race weekend, they were having conversations. So we know these things are being cut. This isn't just sprouting out from nowhere. It's not fugazi. Maybe it doesn't happen. My crystal ball is as murky as the next person's. This is just F1 barbershop talk, rumour and conjecture ultimately. But loads of people said to me, Cameron, what are you talking about, this Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari thing? So Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes fans at the time were saying, Lewis will never leave Mercedes. This is blasphemy. F1 sacrilege that you spout, Cameron, when we were talking honestly and earnestly about the fact that on a gazillion occasions, Lewis Hamilton had always said that he wouldn't mind donning the red overalls at some point. Oh, Cameron, he'll never leave Mercedes. No. Why would he leave Mercedes, Cameron? No, he's a Mercedes man. He's invested. It's the Hamilton Commission. It's Project 40. And look, and how did that work out for you? So these goalposts are always moving, and the key goalposts in this Maximilian Verstappen equation, as he said it, his words, not mine, can they provide him with a car? He needs a semblance of harmony, but can they keep the people requisite to building a car capable of winning races and therefore championships? That's it, done. And then build it. That's it. That's all that Max has ever wanted. And that's why these rumours are swirling around now more than ever. Because again, maybe Red Bull don't build a car. What do they need to do to build a car? So they need to mitigate for the understeer on the low minimum speed turns. And that's the first thing. They need to build it in. They need to fix for the suspension and diminish the lateral stiffness of it so that Max Verstappen can ride curbs once in a while. Those are your first two things now. Anti-dive, anti-squat, yeah. Need to rebuild it so that it's got that aerodynamic efficiency that made DRS, double DRS, like 2 years ago. You remember that? As soon as they put the DRS on, it was like they were driving a different formula. Whatever happened to that in 2-4 Gonzo? So I say all that to say this. Aston Martin, rumour, Mail on Sports. Okay, let me say this. Table setting. Mail on Sports. The most reliable of F1 news publications. Probably not. All F1 journalists and publications are created equally, some more equal than others. I don't know about Mail on Sport, but it was an exclusive and they wrote it, so we got to talk to it. In there yesterday, they said that Aston Martin's commercial chief, man who's very close to Lawrence Stroll, ultimate head honcho of Aston Martin F1, Jefferson Slack, has been telling potential sponsors that four-time champion will surely soon sign for Aston Martin. Maximilian Verstappen is of whom he speaks. Stroll's desire to sign the Dutchman to race cars designed by Adrian Newey is well known in F1 circles. However, Aston Martin, their response when asked for comment, they were swift to shut it down. They categorically denied that they'd approach Max Verstappen with anything such as a £1 billion contract. I'm telling you, it's techie. Styler says Max and Lance cannot win. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, if Max can win with an underperforming Checo, then I don't. Well, you let me know in the chat. Is Lance worse or better than Checo was last year? Ugh. I mean, lesser of two evils, eh? Like, just dip at this point. I don't know who I'd take. I genuinely don't know. Go on, let me read this out to you. Max Verstappen's Camp 2. They've issued a cryptic response when asked to comment on the £1 billion contract claim. They said two words only, and I quote, "That's nice," unquote. That sounds like Maximilian Verstappen has written the statement himself, does it not? That's nice. I thought he was going to say simply lovely, very matter of fact, and not denying it out of hand either. Interesting. Apophenia, any? Maybe it means something, or maybe it means nothing. But I think against the backdrop of what we know from Max and the way that Jos and Raymond Vermeulen have handled his career, I think this could potentially mean something at some point. Maybe not now, but at some point in the future. And I'm not the only one. Let me finish reading this out now. So he's contracted currently, we know all this, contracted currently at Red Bull until 2028. When he was asked last season, you recall, would he see out, first two questions he was asked, when he completes his 200th race in Formula 1, are you going to complete another 200? Max Verstappen's response was one-worded, no. He doesn't intend to carry on for that long. He doesn't want to be another Sir Lewis or another Fernando. He said he's not going to be 40 still driving an F1 car, that he wants to do other things, race other formula, do sim races more frequently. He's not just an F1 driver, and that's okay, is it not? Not all of these F1 drivers can be the same, but I digress. Here's what Planet F1 have said, because this is where it gets tacky. In fact, let me tell you this as well, table setting. Aston Martin chief, whilst Aston Martin denied all knowledge categorically out of hand, once upon a time, Aston Martin chief trackside officer Mike Crack went as far to say that last year, the door, and I quote, "The door for Max Verstappen is always open for everything." That's what Mike Crack, team principal of Aston Martin, then told Racing News 365. And of course, what else would you expect before I go into this diatribe from the boys and girls over at therace.com? And again, they're not half bad, to be fair to them. Let me read out some of your comments, Starlet. I don't think Max can demand to be released before 2026. So, all right, Starlet, to that point, I've read on a couple of occasions, again, word on conjecture and speculation, I've read this, though, in a couple of different publications, that if Max, as soon as this year, 2025, if Max, as at the third race of the year, which will be in Suzuka, is lower than third in the driver's standing, then that's cause, via performance clauses, for him to null and void his contract with immediate effect. Take that for whatever you will. Maybe it's true, maybe it's false. But every time I hear from Christian Horner, team principal of the Bulls that are red, he always says there are performance clauses in every single contract. So I wouldn't put it past Max Verstappen and Jos and Raymond Vermeulen to do now as they've done so frequently in the past since Max Verstappen's been in Formula One, in institute and leverage performance clauses to their own ends. Why would you not? He's a 4-time champion, soon to be 5, some say. One of the greatest, goatiest drivers that we've ever seen in F1 history, with a driver dad, an F1 driver dad, who's super paranoid that one day his son, even now with 4 championships in his back pocket, that his career will fall at the same hurdles as his did, alongside a bloody Michael Schumacher. It's a poison chalice of a tenure. And that's what Jos Verstappen is super keen not to happen to his son. That means, what does that look like? Performance clauses in his contract. There it is. Max in Aston Green. Oh, the humanity. Checo's a much better. I don't disagree with that style. Checo is a better F1 driver in history, but I'm on about now. Because F1 is a sport where what have you done for me lately is all that matters. Here's what Max Verstappen said in response to these rumours way back when, at some point last year, I want to say. He told Viaplay, "No, I haven't talked about all of that, signing a contract with another team. At the moment, I haven't even thought about all of that." Max continued, "At the moment," this is last year, remember, "at the moment I'm just busy trying to win a championship, and I haven't got time nor bandwidth for all of that other shenanigans." Oh, and by the way, Planet F1, let me read this. Aaron says, "Max, like all young people, can't properly envision their future dealing around what they want to. He'll be driving 400. You think so, Aaron? You think he's been a bit premature? Potentially, maybe, but you got to take him at his word. He's never lied to us like that since he's been in F1 that I know of. But again, who can predict the future? But my crystal ball is as murky as the next person's. Go on, let me tell you this then. Because Planet F1 have written, not Planet F1, the race even, excuse me, have written a brilliant article where they've talked about, I want to say the title of the article is "The Inconvenient Truth About Max Verstappen Leaving Red Bull to Go to the Green Team in Aston Martin." And it's genius. They couch it in the following terms, and I will try and summarise. It's not even a news story. Lawrence Stroll's Aston Martin trying to sign Max Verstappen is largely in keeping with the behaviour that Lawrence Stroll has come to embody. He wants to win. And indeed, why would Lawrence Stroll spend all of the capital into infrastructure, wind tunnels, 50 million, 300 million in terms of the factory, that the brand new one that's just come online last year, the brand new factory, 20 million a year for Adrian Newey? Why would you put all of that financial resource into those bods and then not seek Max Verstappen? Why would you not then try and sign Max Verstappen? It'd almost be counterintuitive, right? In for a penny, in for a pound. Have you seen that meme of the dude with the pickaxe digging for gold? It's a side-on view, and he gives up just as he's about to, just one more dig at the pickaxe, and he would have struck gold. You see him walking the other way just as he's about. This is what Lawrence Stroll would be doing if indeed he's not trying to sign Max Verstappen. If past his prologue, every time you put a mic in front of Lawrence Stroll's face, he talks all this shenanigans. He's got this very famous line off trotted out where he says, "When I get passionate about something, I win." And Andy Cowell in this article, only new Aston Martin team principal, only underlines that sentiment, that Lawrence will stop at nothing. Financial resource is the least of his problems. He's got 99 problems, but financial resources is not one. He will throw all of the money at this problem because he wants to be. He's seen Zach Brown winning now. You think he's going to want to have that? Zach Brown winning and he cannot. No, Lawrence Stroll isn't that way. So this article's written in that context, that why would you not expect Aston Martin, a Lawrence Stroll-led Aston Martin, to pursue Max Verstappen? What are we doing here? Only the base, your legend, can be the fresh fade enhancements on the show. You know what? Only the base. I'm not even gonna lie to you. There's something that my barber does, and I can't even know. There may or may not be. Do you know what I mean? I can neither confirm nor deny, but we can talk about it honestly. I'm not going to hide only the race. It is what it is. I'm old and everything is receding and greying. Like you can see in here, it's techier than techie things. But again, I'm trying to do it gracefully, kind of, and failing. But I digress. Go on then. This the race article, and we'll bookend on this. It says of the Verstappen to Aston Martin story that there's no point in signing Newey and injecting all this financial resource to only then go and back down from the mountain that is the final boss that is signing Maximilian Verstappen. Listen, if there are guarantees in Formula One, which there probably aren't, but if there were guarantees of success, Adrian Newey would be one, and then the second would be Maximilian Verstappen, maybe Sir Lewis Hamilton, particularly in his youth. So why not then go out and try and sign these people? This says, go on. The race claims that Aston Martin moved to rubbish the claims and issued a short and sharp statement. They said the team categorically denies the claims in the story. Of course they would, because they don't want to jeopardise the deal if there is a deal that they are sniffing around. Let's talk about the time frame as well. Oh gosh, look at this. You know, when sometimes the jigsaw puzzles just fit themselves together. You know what I'm talking about here. Here's what they've said. And I'll read it out because I've got to give them credit. I'll link the article in the description. But whatever the reality of what was or was not said in private chats between Aston Martin and potential sponsors, there is an inconvenient truth to the situation, because Aston Martin needs to start thinking about its driver lineup beyond 2026. So Verstappen has to be on its radar. Well, why 2026? Well, because Fernando and Alonso and Lance Stroll are under contracts for the next 2 seasons after they both agreed fresh deal extensions last year. There is no suggestion of a rethink over that 2026 timeframe, especially because the team will only start seeing the benefit of Adrian Newey's efforts at the start of the new rule era that is coming then, start of 2026. However, it is almost certain that there will be a change of lineup at the start of 2027. Why? Well, because Lance Stroll has been underperforming and Fernando El Plan Alonso is as old as the hills, nearly 500 years old, or 43 depending on who you talk to. But you get the picture. And then if you've got 1 or 2 drivers leaving, depending on who you talk to, some say that Lance will never leave because his dad is the owner and the reason, the raison d'etre, as far as him buying Aston Martin in the first place. But if Fernando Alonso goes, then who better to substitute in than one Maximilian Verstappen, of course under the umbrella heading of the dying need to win races and therefore championship of both the constructors and drivers variety. And that's why this starts to make sense all of a sudden. Because Max Verstappen's already expressed concerns about the Red Bull Ford powertrain nut 2026 settings. We know that those rules and regulations are going to focus, just like they did in 2014 even, on the power unit, right? On efficiency, maximal output. Now it will be the hybridization of the electric portion and the combustion portion. Who can get the most out of that? Now, if I'm a betting man and past this prologue, I wouldn't be betting against the boys and girls from Brackley and Bricks of Mercedes. Yes, Toto, the boy who cried wolf settings, because all noises from that side of the pond are that it's not dissimilar to 2014 when they took a leap and started to lay the groundings for the most dominant period, back to back 8 constructors championships that we've ever seen in F1 history, by dint of this durable competitive advantage, this turbo hybrid that they perfected in 2014. So Scuderia Ferrari too, right? Who would back against those? Enzo Ferrari said aerodynamicists just don't know how to build engines. You know what I mean? That's what they're looking to do. 2026, Ferrari and Mercedes competing for a championship. I wouldn't back against it. Therefore, Maximilian Verstappen will be inspecting the progress of the Red Bull Ford powertrain unity, if indeed that's something it can be called, and trying to understand where Mercedes are and where Scuderia Ferrari are relative to Red Bull. That will happen in 2026. He'll have a year to inspect the progress. Red Bull Forward Powertrains, if they're behind, 12 months won't be the lead time to turn that around. It will take longer than that. And Max Verstappen could and might well bounce over that time period in 2027, right when Aston Martin will be making some critical decisions, right about the time when, in the exact moment, early 2027, when Aston Martin will be making decisions about their driver lineup for the foreseeable. It's going to get techie. Max said 5 in a row. Starley, I would love to see Max in green. Wow. Alonso and Max, come on, make my day. But would it be Alonso and Max, Starley, or would it be Max and Lance? Oh, the humanity. I cannot go. Max said 5 in a row. This man can't resist being the greatest of all time. He will go for 8. His quips betray his posture on leaving soon. I like what you've done there, Aaron, and you might be onto something there, chap. If anything, Max, well, let me say, Remco, say Max goes to Aston Martin. Who would go? I'd love to see Max versus Alonso battle, joining the other inter-team battles of 2025, but Lance, yeah, Lance can't. Already, I read another article where it was talking about Adrian Newey saying, expressing doubts about whether Fernando Alonso, the collaboration of Fernando and Lance as a driver pairing, are commensurate now, talented enough now to drive the car that he's looking to put together. Sounds a bit like Adrian, to be fair. Although Adrian in the past has always harboured aspirations to work with Alonso, expressing regret that he wouldn't get opportunity. So I don't know who to believe at this point. Smoke, fire, all journalistic publications created equally. Orwellian, I don't know. It's chaos. It's very chaotic. Chiba, if anything, Max will take Alonso. Exactly, Chiba. Great minds. Got a dream a bit, Starley says. And then probably retire in 30. Nominest Omen. Mark my words, Max will arrive in 26. Try with Red Bull because he's that loyal. If the car is rubbish, I don't think it's Max who's not loyal, but his team do not give a fudge. They do not care. What the one thing, Jos knows the mistakes, the most oft-made mistakes where F1 careers go to perish. And what he doesn't want is for Max to make those same mistakes, whether the car's slow, whether teammates too temperamental and antagonistic. Like those aren't. If Max wants to make his own mistakes, then I think Jos Verstappen and team will be cool with that. But Jos Verstappen will not stand for, nor will he tolerate a repeat of the mistakes that ultimately his career fell foul at. He's not going to have it. And I think this could be one, potentially, a car that doesn't work for him. Not quick enough. Doesn't have the handling time. He'll have him leave straight away. According to William Hill, there will be a fight between Lando Norris, Max and Charles Leclerc. What is your predictions? Jacob says, So I saw that at the last time I checked, which was probably about 24 hours ago, Lando Norris, from being sole favourite to win the Drivers' Championship in 2.5, was now co-favourite with Max Verstappen, which makes me a bit angry. I always like to go, every time, you know the rules of Cameron CC already, never ever back against Max Verstappen in your life, especially when it's wet, like, and it's 2024 and it's Brazil, like never in your life. So I just, I was tempted when Max Verstappen was second favourite. That doesn't smell right to me. But then who knows? There are all these variables that you've got to talk about, right? Can Red Bull build him a car? Because that car, I don't think that car should have won the Drivers' Championship. You know, Max's won. I don't know the stats. You guys fact check me on this. Don't quote me. But there's not been I think you can count on one hand the number of drivers who have won a Drivers' Championship in the car that year that didn't win the Constructors. Do you know what I mean? So Red Bull didn't win the Constructors last year, but Max won the Drivers. I think 99% of the time, it's the car that the driver wins the world drivers in also wins the Constructors. I think it was a very rare thing that happened last year for Max to win the drivers in a car that didn't win the Constructors in the same year. I don't think too many people have done that in history. I know Senna has it. Senna didn't do that. Senna didn't do it. I don't know. I think it was something special that he did. Oh, stop glazing, Max Cameron. You're always glazing, Max. Can't you even talk about something? Yeah, of course. Of course. Until Blando will choke against us, Nando. Oof. Oh, do we talk about this? I want to go easy on Nando for a bit. Never bet against Lance going to the beach on Brazil on a rainy day. WTA said it's exactly the car should not have won in 24, says Jacob. I think that's it, right? I don't think Checo's that bad. I was reading another article that talked about, again, courtesy of the race, I think, that talked about Max being a blindfold for Red Bull. Like, this is Bird Box settings and Sandra Bullock that allowed them to avert their gaze temporarily from their travails, from the multitudinous errors of their ways as far as their design philosophy, that dodgy engine cover, the gun barrels that Mercedes failed with. Like, they haven't been good. They haven't been good for a while now. Yeah, okay. So half one, Q1 specifically, they were brilliant again, and that enabled Max Verstappen to run away with it and set an early lead. But then in the second half of the championship, where was that Red Bull car? Were they third fastest even? Were they? McLaren were quicker. Scuderia, Ferrari, and Hans Charles Leclerc were definitely quicker. Were Mercedes were right there, mate. And yet and still he went and won. And they want to say that Max Verstappen can't handle adversity. Yeah. I mean, are those people that say that even allowed to use scissors? Like, I say that without a tongue in cheek. Like, there is an extent to which rational-minded humans can disagree with the evidence that their ears and eyes are presenting them. Do you know what I mean? There is an extent. Past that extent, we need to have a conversation about rational mindedness, and that we need to have a conversation about whether those people should be allowed to use scissors. I'm being honest. But I digress. Max is another Michael, their own Brit. I know, he's a little bit different. And I keep going. Listen, I will implore you guys, if you guys are readers, go and read The Unstoppable by Mark Hughes. He goes into the levels of the. One day we'll do a 60 minutes and I'll talk to you about that book, like my highlights. Oh, the humanity, the level of detail. And he taught. There's one that I had to. Let me see if I can find this for you guys quickly. I'm going to read it out. I shouldn't read this, but I'm going to. I sent it to a friend. It's a brilliant, brilliant piece. I'm sure they won't mind me reading, playing this one piece before as we round third base. Here we go. Let me play it to you. It's a fantastic analogy. You guys tell me. So this is it. Here we go. So again, go and check out, go and download Unstoppable, the ultimate biography of Max Verstappen by Mark Hughes. In there, he lays out. So they're talking about George Best, the footballer, but as an analogy for Max Verstappen and what he's able to do, like in the car. Listen to this. Let me make sure that you guys can hear this as I start to play. It's incredible. And again, shout out to Mark Hughes. I hope it's. I hope I don't get demonetized playing this, but I'm going to play it anyway.
A retired fellow player asked soccer legend.
Play from start.
So it never really developed into anything. It seems unlikely that he would have excelled at that game as he did in racing, but who knows? A retired fellow player once asked soccer legend George Best to stand still so he could look at him. George asked why, and the other player replied, "Because I only ever saw the back of you." It was as if Best had more frames per second than other players, could process the movements and positions of players more quickly, and read the ball so instinctively that he would dance through gaps rivals had not yet seen, leaving them uncomprehending. Max Verstappen's skill in a racing car is of a similar...
So you see where he's going with it. I know he's talking about George Best, but the way that he talks about Best being able to process more frames per second, I just think it parlays. It's a brilliant analogy and parlays into what we're seeing most recently from Mr. Verstappen, not long from Sir Lewis, further back from Michael Schumacher. Do you know what I mean? They're just able to process more frames per second. That's why you see Max and Lewis so calm in the car, as if it's driving Miss Daisy seconds. I don't know. It's chaos. If you can have Max, you don't need Yuki. Oh, the humanity. Go on, Starlet. Checker did not find the car easy to drive, so how bad was the car? Max is scary good. Yeah, well, he's got the ability to adapt, doesn't he? Got very many tools in his automotive pugilism toolbox. Jacob, you're a legend. If MV53 goes to AM, goes to Aston Martin and Honda, what about Yuki screaming Tsunami Tsunoda? So I think Yuki's got a problem anyway. I know the Honda partnership would make you think that. I mean, Honda don't have the power of veto. They will encourage Lawrence Stroll to sign Yuki Tsunoda, but I mean, there's only one seat. Like per Carlos Sainz, right? You've got to be pragmatic, no realistic about Aston Martin. So long as Lawrence Stroll is the head honcho there are not two seats available at Aston Martin. There is one. As long as Lawrence Stroll wants that seat, I don't even know. I think that's an oversimplification of it. I'm not sure. Sometimes I look at Lawrence Stroll, the incredible sulk's face in the press conference or something, and he doesn't even look like he wants to be there. What are we doing here? Whose seat is that? Is that Lance's or Lawrence's? It feels like Lawrence is squeezing a square shape into a round hole in Lance Stroll into his F1 seat. Lance Stroll doesn't want to be there. He's living his father's dream. In fact, his father is living his dream vicariously through his son, is my take. So I think it's a long shot for Yuki. Poor Yuki. Not saying that he doesn't deserve it. I mean, he's been a good driver, but would you leave Racing Bulls to go to Aston Martin and race alongside the son of your boss? If anyone not named Lewis Hamilton or Maximilian Verstappen doesn't want to take that trade, that's a contract that you're signing with the one that they call Lucifer, is it not? Oh, but I digress. Right, I've gone 60 minutes and I'm about to get divorce because I'm meant to be watching Traitors. I hope if you guys are in the UK or not in the UK, there is a series called Traitors. Watch it. It is incredible. There's nothing better to do in the F1 off season than watch Traitors. UK season 2. Incredible. And they do them all over. There's an American series. They're all just the best. If you've ever played Mafia and Villagers at Christmas, it is that. But with big production values. Oh, the humanity. It's so good. You guys are legends. Macon just turns up. Hey, by the way, I swear Carlos makes Lily. Macon, we're going to talk about that tomorrow, you know. I promise you, I'll cover the Carlos sides. I'm Carlos Sainz fanboying out at the moment. I'm just in awe of the chap. The way that he's handled himself with grace and like his manner and his technical. I don't know. This isn't me saying he's going to win races, but I don't know. Guys are like, Jacob, you're a legend. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for indulging me and fact checking me and calling me out each and every single time on my very unique brand of F1 bull feathers. Sandra Bullocks, Camerons, you know what I mean? Every single time. You guys have been legends. We'll be back tomorrow. Same schedule again. Now that I'm not bloody sick and dying and flu ridden and bunged up. Back to the same schedule again. 10 a.m. GMT, 8 p.m. GMT every single day of the week. We're going in because there are very many F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. There's an F1 conversation ongoing. I'm sick and tired of the internationally syndicated broadcast doing one of these. As soon as there's no longer F1 races, nor Grand Prix, nor a season, they pretend like F1 doesn't bloody exist. I don't even know Sky Sports have an F1 channel yet. And I'm not even joking, because over Christmas, when I wanted to sit down and watch some old school F1 with my young man, they deleted the channel and instead superseded it with darts. Ladies and gentlemen, the F1 jury, what are we doing here? This is nonsense. And this is the reason why we come here to have conversations about Formula One, because nobody apparently in the space, and definitely not the internationally syndicated F1 broadcaster in Sky Sports F1, are doing. You guys are legends. I'll see you tomorrow. Between now and then, as always, prosecution rests. No further questions, Your Honour.